Okay, so here in lesson 6, dealing with this particular Excel worksheet, I want to show you some additional skills that you need to know pertaining to Microsoft Excel. And again, I'm going to remind you that because I'm having to assume that you do not have anything but a Chromebook, I'm having to teach this using the online version of Excel, and because of that, I may find out as I try to complete this activity that there are some things that I would normally do in the desktop version of Excel that I can't do here. And again, as I complete these activities, I don't mind letting you see me make those. I don't want to say mistake. It's just because you don't know what you don't know. But that'll give me an opportunity to show you some things, some of the differences between the desktop version and the online version. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing that I've done, and remember, the order in which you do these steps doesn't really matter, but as I scroll down and show you this, all of these cells that you see that are of different colors are going to require either a formula or a function. Now, a formula to me it's basically just a math equation. So if you come up here in this first yellow cell, and by the way, you'll see that there's a comment here. There are comments that you could click, and you do get the comment version of here. And the comment here, right here, you see this little highlight right here, kind of gray. It tells you that in this cell, the formula that you're supposed to put in is the quantity times the rate in all yellow cells, and then to format them as currency. Now, all formulas start with an equal sign, okay? All formulas start with an equal sign, so you have to put in an equal sign. And the quantity is over here, it's in cell B6. Now, you can manually type in B6, or you can click on cell B6 as I just did. And then the next thing you would want to do is to put in a multiplication symbol. Now, in Excel, multiplication symbol is the star key. Matter of fact, if you are doing this using a regular keyboard, which you can plug a regular keyboard into even a Chromebook, if you look on the right hand side, you've got a numeric keypad. You're going to see a cluster of the numbers 0 through 9, and then you're also going to see your basic math operator symbols. You're going to see plus, minus, multiplication, which is a star or an asterisk, I guess. And you're going to see a slash, which is for division. And the enter key, if you will, serves as your equal button. Where normally on a calculator you would hit the equal to get a total. Well, this is why you start all formulas and functions with an equal sign. That way when you hit the enter key, it automatically performs that calculation. So it is a little bit different. But anyway, what we want to do is we want to multiply this cell B6. We want to multiply it times C6. So here you see equals B6 times C6. So what it's going to do, it's going to take the contents of those two cells, it's going to multiply it together. And then when I hit enter, as I just did, then I get a total of 50,000. Now, I know that was pretty easy to do the math on that, because you know that any number multiplied times 1 is equal to itself. Okay, and it also said that you should format this as currency. Now, I'm going to come back to that step here in just a moment, because I want to show you something else. So now I want to come down here, and down here in this rate column, we're always talking about dollar amounts. Okay, now in Excel you can format numbers multiple ways, and I have indicated that these yellow cells I wanted formatted as currency, which means really you could even format these cells as currency as well. So what I want to do though is I actually want to come over here and I want to select these cells right here, because in this rate column we're actually talking about money. And we want to come up here under the general, and we click this, and then we want to select currency. I actually want to come down here though. I'm going to click more number formats. I want to select currency. Okay, and I'll show you why I want to do this, because when you come over here and when you click the more number formats, you see a few more options that you've got for these numbers over here. How would you format a number that was negative? Well, we're not going to have any negative numbers here, but how many decimal places do you want? Now, in this case, though, we don't want any decimal places, so we can change this 2 to a 0 and click OK. Okay, and as I look at these, these are all whole numbers, so you don't necessarily need to have zeros, which is why I've formatted this to 2 decimals. And the reason I wanted you to see this, look what happens. Now again, this may be one of those things where the online version doesn't quite work the way the desktop version would. I'm going to come over here and put in the equal sign again, and I want to click on the quantity and then hit times. Then I want to click on the rate. So you've got B11 times C11. Now when I hit enter, I think this cell should automatically be formatted as currency, and it is. So because I had already formatted these cells as currency, then this automatically takes on the format of currency. So now what we want to do is to come over here and click on this cell, and you'll see this little square in the lower right corner. That is your fill handle. You want to drag this fill handle down, and you take your mouse and move so that the arrow's on top of that fill handle. Then you drag it down through these other yellow cells, and then you're going to see that these formulas are automatically copied down, and that you do not have to go back and do all of these manually. If you were to look up here in the formula bar, you would see the formula for each of these cells that I click on. And then if I were to double click on one of these cells, as I just did, it's going to highlight in different colors the 2 cells that are made up as part of that formula. So here that you actually see the formula, and then and I really think it's very beneficial to help you to easily identify the various parts of this formula by putting them in different colors and by highlighting these cells that make up this formula in different colors as well. So the next thing that we want to do is to come over here and we click on this, and this has got a comment attached to it. So notice over here in my instructions, you see my comments over here, and you see that in cell D16, I want you to put in a sum function. Now, earlier lesson, we did a sum function, and you know that all you've got to do is to come over here, and you can come under the Home tab and click the Auto Sum button, and then Excel is going to ask, are these the cells of which you want to get the sum? And in this case, yes, they are. So all you have to do is hit the Enter key on your keyboard, and you get a sum total of $4,925. So the next thing we want to do is to come down here. We're basically going to repeat this process a couple of times. If you select these cells with your mouse, and remember, when I say to select, you need to put your mouse in the middle of the cell so that the arrow is in the middle of this first cell, and you select them by clicking, holding, and dragging, and then you could come over here and click number. And when I say number, I mean you click this arrow. This is your number style selector, but you could come down here and select more number formats. And again, you want to select currency, and you want no decimals. Then you click OK. So now you could come over here to this cell, and you repeat the process where you want to multiply the quantity of your floral centerpieces by the rate or the price of your floral centerpieces. So all formulas and functions start with an equal sign, and then it's the quantity, which is in cell B19, times, which is the asterisk key, and then here's your amount, which is in cell C19. So when you hit enter, you get $875, which is already formatted using the currency style. And remember, because these numbers were already formatted as currency, then these are formatted as currency. So again, I want to drag this fill handle, which is this tiny little handle on the lower right corner, take my mouse, move it so that I've got this black cross, drag down, and then these formulas are automatically going to be copied down. So now what I want to do is I actually want, again, I want to put, click the auto sum button over here that's under my home tab under the editing group. And Excel again is asking, are these the cells of which you want to get a sum total of? Yes, it is. And so then I hit enter on the keyboard, and then I get my total of 1530. Now, this next one, I'm actually going to do a slightly different manner. I want to show you when I do this one, I want to put the totals in here, and then what I want are the formulas, I should say, but then I want to actually do my sum total a different method. Alright, so what we're going to do, let's go ahead and we can actually just select all of these cells right here. I'm going to go ahead and just get this step out of the way. So I selected all of these cells that are in the rate column. I want to come over here, and again I want to select more number formats because I want to select currency. Now again, it's important to note that currency by default will give you 2 decimal places, but you know that if all of your numbers are whole dollar amounts, then you don't need decimals. So then I want to come up here again, and I want to put a formula in here. So I start by hitting the equal key, and I click on graphics work, which is cell B27, and then I hit times, which again is the asterisk key, which, by the way, the asterisk key I should have mentioned earlier is typically the secondary function that's on the 8 key on your keyboard. So if you're having difficulty finding that, look on your 8 key, and you hold down the shift button and hit that key, and then you'll get the asterisk. And so it's times C27. So then I want to come down here and repeat this process and drag this down through these yellow cells. Now, this is where I want to show you why using the sum function is important. Now, there is, and you could probably figure out that if I were to just put in here, instead of putting in the sum function, what if I were to come down here and put in equals and put in this cell, then hit the plus key, and then click on this cell and hit the plus key, and then click on this cell, and then I can hit the enter key. Now, here's the thing. I do get the correct answer, or I do get the correct number for this instance. But what would happen if I had an additional expenditure up here for publicity? So let me just show you something that maybe I've not showed you in previous lessons. What if I wanted to add something in here for, let's say, marketing? Which basically marketing is publicity. How about I say web ads? So I can come right here on this row header for column 28, and I can right click with my mouse. You're going to have to trust me that I did that. Actually, you could also come up here and go under insert, and let me see if I can do this. Again, this is one of those things that that may be a little bit different than what I am used to doing on the... Okay, well, I'm not seeing it, and I'm sure it's on here somewhere. But what I want to do is I want to insert an additional row right here. So I want to right click right here and go to insert rows. And let's just say you had an additional expenditure of web ads, and you only had that one time, so I hit the put a 1 in this cell, and let's say that web ad cost me, let's just say it was $500. So I'm using the tab key to move across. And by the way, you'll notice that as I put 500 in this cell, that it automatically formatted this. And I can even come here, and really I could use either one of these cells, and I could just click it and grab the fill handle and drag it down again, and it does the math for me. But notice notice this total here. This total here has not changed. The total has not changed. Because if you go here and you look in the formula bar, first you got to click on this cell, but if you look up here in the formula bar, you're going to notice it still says D27 plus D29 plus D30, because what happened is when we added the additional row in, that does not automatically adjust and add in the additional, the new row, if you will. You had a new row 28, so when we put this in, when we inserted the new row, what used to be row 28 is now row 29, and because of that, then you don't have, your formula is not going to be right. So this is why you use the sum function. So again, note that this is 2630. I could come over here now and just click on the auto sum button. And in this case, again, it's going to ask me, are these the cells of which you want to get a sum? Now, yes, these are the cells of which I want a sum. So when I hit the enter key, now I've got the new total of 3130. So that is the benefit of actually going in and using a sum function, because if you add in additional data, this will automatically be recalculated. Now, just to make my point, and you could also say if I remove data, and again, I just did this for the sake of making the example. So I'm going to come over here now and I'm going to delete this row 28, but look what happens to this total when I delete this entire row 28. And I want to delete the row. I don't want to clear the contents because the empty row would still be there. I want to delete the whole row. Notice how this automatically recalculates. So again, that's why you want to use the sum function. So now I want to repeat the process over here, and I want to go a little bit quicker now because you've seen me do this for a few times, and I would think by now you would get the hang of it. So now that I've done those, this is a little bit different. We want to take and we want to get a sum total of the total prizes. And this is what I was showing you earlier. On this one, you cannot do, you cannot use sum, not easily. In this case, what you might want to have to do. Now look, let's just experiment with this. Again, I told you, I'm kind of learning the online version of this myself. You could, although it's not recommended in this case, you could try putting in the sum function. Now, I want to type this in manually because you could come up here and get a sum, and you could click on this cell, and then you could put in a comma. And then click on this blue cell and put in a comma. Click on this blue cell, put in a comma. Click on this blue cell and put in a comma. And then click on this blue cell. And then you see that you don't have a range of cells, but you've got individual cells. So now I want to put in a right parenthesis at the end of this, and I want to hit enter. And when I do, notice that you do get a total here. Okay. So again, your total is 34,865. So let's go up here again, and under publicity, let's go back in and let's put in that web ad again. So I want to insert the row. And let's just say we had one, and let's say it was $500. And then I need to drag this formula back down into this cell right here. Of course, this automatically recalculated, but notice how this automatically recalculated as well, because we used the sum function. And I actually want to double click on this now. Notice how the sum function, when I double click it, it automatically adjusted for the addition of that particular row. That when I made a new row 28, it made what used to be row 30, it made it row 31, and it made what was 36 37, and it made what was 41 42. So you can look at that and see these down here, and you see how those automatically updated, because the sum function can detect when you actually put in additional rows or if you remove rows of data. So I want to go ahead and hit enter again, and then over here on expenses, click on that. So there's a comment over here, and you can see it right here in cell D49. Here you want the total of all of the blue cells. That is your total estimated. And by the way, I just noticed something. I made a little boo-boo myself. I got a little bit ahead of myself, I think. This cell right here is not the total of all of these blue cells. This is the total of these two cells right here. And by the way, again, I told you I don't mind you seeing me make mistakes, because even I have brain cramp every now and then. But this cell right here should be the sum function of the two cells directly above it. And then this cell right here, the green one, this is the sum of all the blue cells. And again, you know, it's perfectly okay that I made that little, had that little mental lapse, because it gives you an opportunity to learn how to go back and correct mistakes. And I am a big believer in that when I try, when I make these videos, that if I make an error like this, that I do not edit out the mistakes that I've made, because you need to be able to see how to get out of these mistakes, how to fix them. So I'm going to come over here again, and this time I want to put in the sum function, and I want to do it the way I just showed you. I want to actually type in the sum and put in a left parenthesis, and I'm going to scroll up here, and I'm going to start clicking on these blue cells, and I'm going to do them in order this time, from the top of the spreadsheet to the bottom. And I put in a comma, and I know right now I can't see the cell that I'm putting this formula into, but I can see it up here in the formula bar. And notice how over here you get a little preview of what this function is going to look like as you're typing it. And you have to remember to put that comma in after each cell so you can go to the next one. So now this is the last of all the blue cells, so I want to close this out. Remember, you've got to have the same number of left and right parentheses inside a formula. And we do. We only have one of each. That's what we're supposed to have. So you hit enter, and then that gives you a total. And now what we need to do is we need to get an estimated profit, which if you click on over here and you look, the income minus the expenses over here in cell D50. It's the cell, again, it's our income minus our expenses, and our income is up here. Now, I probably should have had you format all this a little bit differently to start. But what we're going to do is we're going to just put a formula in here. And so I'm going to put in equals and put in income, which is in D6. And put in a minus sign. And here's our expenses right here. So it's D6 minus D49. So you're going to have an estimated profit in this case of $10,260. And one of the great things about a spreadsheet, that one of the reasons why you use a spreadsheet, is because you want to be able to see what would happen if. And if you are using a spreadsheet, you can just come up and change any of these numbers to update, whether it be the quantity or the rate of what you're selling something for or whatnot. And so let me just go ahead real quick. I want to format this number right here, format it as currency. Matter of fact, I want to select both of these cells right here, and I want to format these as currency using no decimals. And so this looks a whole lot neater. And then some other things that we would want to do to format this to make it look better. You can select on the column header for row B, and then you can come up here under your home tab under the alignment group, and you can click the align center button because we're not adding these up. We're not adding these up or doing any math calculations on these. We're actually doing it with the cells to the right. Then you can align these in the center to make it look a little bit easier to read. And I mean, really you could do it with the rate as well, but I'm just going to leave it like that. All right, so some other things that we could do with this to make it a little bit easier. You might want to format your income a little bit different. And if you look down here, the income, down here, you could do this any way you want, but here's one thing that you could do. Income, typically, in accounting terms, you may have heard someone talk about being in the red or being in the black. Being in the red means that you are losing money, or it usually represents money that you're spending or losing or that is outgoing. So those funds are typically in the are red. So one of the things you can do here is your expenses right here. You can maybe come over here and use this fill color button, and you might want to highlight this cell right here as red, and you can even change the font itself maybe to be white. And then if you wanted to use some other skills that we've used in here, you can click on the Format Painter button and then drag it through these, and make sure you've got that paintbrush right there and drag it through these cells. And then you would also get the same format as what you got here. And now I want to come over here, and these three cells, because I've got them selected, I want to center these like that. Now, income, money that's coming in, is typically, you refer to it as in the black. Well, we got black text here, but you might want to take this and format all of this with a black fill. And of course, the text was already black, so black on black, you can't see it. So again, we want to change this to white text. And then again, these three cells right here, I can select them, and it looks like they're already centered, but they may not be. So in that case, I had to click this button twice to make sure that they were centered. And then you may come down here and change, if you wanted to make these a little bit easier to find, you can come down here and you could click and make this a different color. You may make this, since this represents expenses, we used green, the shade of green, to highlight our expenses. So what we could do is to come up here and we can change this to be in a shade of green. And again, we can come down here and do it like this. We just keep using a shade of green to highlight these and make them easier to read. And you know, when you get into formatting a document, oh, I didn't want to do that one, so I could hit the undo button right here. But I can come down here, and again, I started to say, you know, when you're working with any kind of a document, you want to make it easy to read, and so you do want to spend a little bit of time formatting this, making it easy to read. And one of the other things you have to think about is, you know, when you're doing this kind of thing, you want to think about if you were to be actually printing this out on paper, which we don't do that a lot anymore, but if you were to print this out on paper, what kind of a printer are you printing it to? Are you printing it out in black and white, or are you printing it out in color? And so you have to think about that. So if you were actually printing this out, you may not use as many colors as like what we're using here, but you might instead choose to use borders. Here's your border button. You could put borders around or lines underneath or whatnot. You could put it around these cells to make it stand out a little bit more, to be more easily read. And then down here, you know, you could take this cell right here, and again, this is a shade of peach, and we can click Format Painter, and even though this is a number in here formatted as currency, we could click on this cell, and because that's text in there, it'll still format that using that same peach color that we've got, but obviously it's not going to put a dollar sign in front of it because it's text. And what I started to show you earlier, or talk about earlier, you know, what would happen if? What would happen if? Well, for example, what would happen to our total profit of $10,260 if we had to have 150 hours at $13 an hour? What if the production staff, what if it ended up taking them 160 hours to get this done, or 160, let's just say 160. So if I change this from 150 to 160, look what happens to this cell right here when I hit enter. Look what happens to this cell right here when I hit enter. And then on further down, you see how these numbers automatically change. And then so do these numbers down here. And because we ended up having to spend some more time on this, it actually cut into our profit a little bit, because we had to pay for an additional we had an additional 10 hours of pay that we had to pay workers for. So 10 times 13 would be 130. So that was an additional $130 worth of expenses that we had. Now I want to click the undo key and just show you what would happen if our flat rate production fee wasn't $50,000. What if it was $60,000? Well, this number automatically changes to $60,000, but then down here our profits automatically change to $20,260. And again, it's because all of these sales are dependent upon the values that are in other sales. So that's one of the reasons why you would use a spreadsheet, and you would use functions and formulas. It's to calculate all of this data and to see exactly what would happen if one of these values change. So now that we're done with this, I come over here and I've got my comment for cell A1s to auto fit all columns to width. I'm going to go ahead and just make this. I want to select and click, hold, and drag, because I want to click merge and center. I want to take the contents of these cells and I want to merge them together and make it one cell. And I certainly hope my computer doesn't freeze on me at this point. Hey, look at it. Now it's done. And well, see, it took that long. I don't know why. So let me try merging and centering these two cells together now. It says they're already merged in center, but they weren't quite. So now that went a lot quicker. So I can click on this cell, and I want to go under cell styles, and I want to make this, so I guess I can make this a title or a title style, and I could still change the color if I wanted to. And then I want to come down here and click on this cell, click OK. Let me now merge and center these together again. That's what I wanted. And now I want to click on cell styles again. And this one, I just want to format this using that. I just picked a random one down here, 20% accent 5, which is a shade of blue. And again, this looks a whole lot better now. It's a whole lot easier to read now. Again, I would probably do more to this if I was turning this in for an actual proposal for a business opportunity. I might do a few more things to this, but this is good for this particular purpose. So that is it for this activity. And remember, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me on Microsoft Teams.